That's good to have. I have the pleasure today to introduce the speaker, Mike Stubbs. Mike holds a joint appointment as the director of the Peoria Next Innovation Center and operations lead for the Digitally Connect campus at Bradley University. Mike was previously the director of the technology commercialization for the Illinois Small Business Development Center within the Turner Center for Entrepreneurship at Bradley University, and has also taught technology entrepreneurship courses within Bradley's Foster College of Business. Mike's focus is helping companies navigate the convergence of business and technology to meet the evolving needs and wants of customers. This includes providing support in identifying, evaluating, and pursuing technology commercialization projects that lead to innovative products and services. Mike is a certified public accountant. He's deemed certified financial forensics by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and is a certified fraud examiner. So careful today. Mike is a proud University of Illinois grad. No one. Receiving both his Master of Accounting Science and his Bachelor of Science in Accountancy degrees from the University of Illinois. Mike was born and raised in Peoria and is proud to call Central Illinois his home. Please welcome Mike back with the Rotary.
Thank you. To add to that, it's a general biography. I grew up here, graduated from Richwoods High School, and went through the Peoria District 150 school. So I've got two kids now, one's 8 and one's 10, and now they're basically taking the same path I did. So we're doing good. So happy to be back in Peoria. I presented to you guys about 2 years ago. And so this is going to be more of an update of some of the things that are happening, but some people here probably still are not aware of Peoria Next. So I just wanted to see, will it go?
Yep.
There it goes. Okay. Has anybody here not heard of Peoria Next? We got one, and then the kids. We'll allow it. Okay, great. So a brief overview of some of the things that are in Peoria Next Innovation Center. It's a business incubator on campus. It's operated and funded by Bradley University. I've been the director there for 2.5 years. When I was here 2 years ago, we had about 15 current tenants. We're now at about 31. So entrepreneurship is continuing to grow in the Peoria area. We can highlight some of the graduates and current tenants that are there. So that's on the middle and the left, as well as on the right-hand side. The Central Illinois Angels has an office at Peoria Next, and the Illinois Apex Accelerator used to be called the PTAC. They do no-cost business consulting for people that are interested to sell to the federal government as well as the local and state government. And then they also certify people as minority-owned or women-owned businesses. So if you have any interest in selling to a governmental body or need that sort of certification, they're now called Apex Accelerators, and they're housed out of Peoria Next. We also get support through the Illinois Small Business Development Center, which I was a part of, which is part of Bradley University as well. So the businesses we have at Peoria Next not only receive space at below market rates, so that includes conference rooms and internet and parking and all of the services as well from the Illinois Small Business Development Center. So really trying to create new businesses and growth in the Peoria area. And we'll highlight a couple of these further down. One of them that's kind of fun and interesting that's new is K-Flow. It's on the bottom in the middle. That's probably the less recognizable out of the ones in here. They started about a year ago. They started in our co-working space and now have a 550 square foot space where they have about 5 or 6 employees, I believe. They're a video game design studio. So they're leveraging telemetry data out of a Tesla to create an augmented reality video game. So that's kind of some fun stuff. One of the special things at Peoria Next is that we have research labs. We're the only research labs in a 90-mile radius. And so that's really the reason why we've had success in what we've been doing so far. So what would be a success metric for an innovation center? Usually I ask for feedback, so just think about it for a minute. And I'm not going to ask you guys to speak out because I probably got 2 hours of content in these slides and I'm going to do it in like 15 minutes. We're going to skip a little bit. But right now, from people that like the metrics perspective, this is what the impact of Peoria Next has had on the community. It's over 1,200 jobs. The companies have raised over $460 million in equity and grants, which means that when they're receiving that funding, they're actually valued higher than that, right? So companies that are startups receive funding that's different than bank loans. They're getting equity investments to then continue their research and grow jobs. Those jobs then are, throughout Illinois. We have 67 current and prior tenants. I highlight that we have 31 scalable startups. So these are startups that are creating something that's more of a scalable opportunity to then sell nationwide or worldwide. It's a little different than just your standard consulting or brick or mortar retail store or support services. And there's over 60% of those that are either active or have exited, meaning they've been purchased. And so that's significantly higher than what you would see usually at an incubator or an accelerator. And so we're really showing that in Central Illinois, there's really the resources here to succeed. It's just not many people are aware of it. And so that's why I'm here to give you some more information. We are proud of the fact that over 130 Bradley interns and hires have been hired from the companies that have called Peoria Next home. So we continue to drive success, and now some of the startups are receiving international acclaim. One of those I wanted to highlight is natural fiber welding, right? So 2 years ago, they won the Inventor of the Year award. And we'll get into some intellectual property stuff a little later, just because it's where my background is. This might sound a little wonky, but the Inventor of the Year award comes from the Intellectual Property Owners Association, which is an international trade group of over 125 companies, including Caterpillar and Johnson & Johnson and 3M and AbbVie and Google, any of these large companies you're thinking about. They only give this award to one inventor or pair of inventors a year. The year before natural fiber welding won, BioNTech won for the mRNA technology in the COVID vaccine. A couple of years before that, it was CRISPR-9 for cancer research. You know, LIDAR has won. So December 2022, natural fiber welding in Peoria won the award, which from a worldwide perspective only goes to one innovation, right? So it's really remarkable, the success that's coming out of some of the companies that are here. Some new initiatives we're working on. So IMEC is the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center. They have the entire third floor at Peoria Next. We're doing some partnerships with them, and we've done some different workshops to support small and medium-sized manufacturers in the area, and really looking at ways in which we can continue to support some of those startups as well from the manufacturing space. And so there's different shifts in industries, and so how can we continue to support those companies, especially the startups there that can use the services also with IMEC. The World Wildlife Fund is interested in creating an invasive carp processing consortium that we're going to house out of Peoria Next. Right now, the partnership includes UC Davis, Western Illinois, Mizzou, and Bradley, and the World Wildlife Fund to partner and create better ways in which to sustainably harvest invasive carp out of the Illinois River. And that's in partnership with another Peoria Next, a current Peoria Next tenant, but they'll be graduating out very shortly here. It's a temporary home for them, which is Freshwater Select. I'm doing an event next Friday with Ollie. So Ollie does a lot of courses at Peoria Next. So to the extent people are participating in Ollie, you might have been Peoria Next and in the conference rooms to use those spaces. And so we're going to do one where it's a shark tank. We're going to call it the carp tank, but we're going to have 5 ag tech startups present on what they're doing as a practice pitch, and then having those Ollie participants give feedback on how that pitch is going and some advice of what they should do and, you know, what they found interesting and different. So ways in which we can kind of pair that. We also have one student presenter from Bradley in RPS spraying, so that'll be fun. This is an interesting point that I want to bring up. So from an ecosystem perspective, when you're a startup, you need equity investment, is what we kind of talked about. We have the Central Illinois Angels, which is an angel investment network, but we don't have a venture capital firm in Peoria. And so if you think about the state of Illinois, the treasurer's office of the state of Illinois has $1 billion fund called ILGIF, the Illinois Growth and Innovation Fund, but it's a fund of funds. So they can only use that $1 billion by funding other venture capital firms who then fund startups. Because we have no venture capital firms here in Peoria, all of that money then goes to other cities, mainly Chicago and Champaign, because those are the only cities in Peoria or in Illinois that have venture capital firms. But they can then invest in startups in the area, but it becomes harder for our startups to get introductions to these fund managers that have received Illinois funds that are supposed to support the entire state, right? So I've been working with the Illinois Growth and Innovation Fund on how do we create a fund here? What would that look like? How do we get that model going? How do we kind of improve on that? And so I presented in Chicago for the Illinois Growth and Innovation Fund Summit last year about what we're doing down here at Peoria Next and the Central Illinois area from an innovation perspective. A few months ago, Illinois DCEO also launched a new initiative called Illinois Invent. And so the national government provides what's called SSBCI funds. Illinois received a big chunk of that. They put $114 million of that into something they're calling the Invent Fund. What's different for Invent versus what I previously talked about with ILGIF is this one, Invent can invest directly into startups. And so it's the first time that that money, the $114 million that the state has, can invest directly into startups regardless of where they are within Illinois. They require, though, that they would match terms of a different equity investor. And so why I'm meaning this is that if I'm a startup and I want to receive equity, if I receive $100,000 for 5% or whatever, they'd be able to match those terms. And so it's ways in which you can actually get local people to invest in startups, and not only will that impact those startups in your community, but you also have the ability for that startup to then talk to Invent to try to get more of that $114 million to come to the Peoria area rather than to Chicago and Champaign. And so it's ways in which we're trying to do this. One of the things we found is that not many people understand how venture capital works or how venture investments work. And so how do we pair with different people to provide resources to understand, what's a cap table, what are investments? If I'm doing 100,000, is it like now or is it over 10 years? What's an exit? What do I look for startups? And so we're working through the process of trying to figure out how do we make a training curriculum around that that's accessible for people that they can then sign up for that and learn more information. So now into patents, and there'll be a reason why a little later here too about this story, but it's in the US Constitution in Article 1, they've written in patent protection. So the founding fathers of the United States found that the only way that they could succeed is if they shared their innovative thoughts so other people could invent on top of that. But the only way you get people to share their inventions are to provide them some sort of economic benefit to make sure that nobody's stealing those ideas. So right now you get 20 years of basically a monopoly on that invention, right? And so that allows then disclosure to everyone so then other people can learn from your ideas. And so to give you an example of what that looks like, Caterpillar actually has GPS technology. So separate from like all of the other patents they have, I've just kind of picked one from a GPS technology perspective here. This dates back to 1989. They're pretty much the founders of a lot of GPS technology that you're aware of. And so this patent actually issued in 1997, but is based on an application from 1989. There was 49 different companies that had inventors that actually referred back to that patent. And so there was 69 different US patents that got issued off of that initial idea and then added on to it. And of those 62 patents, 49 different companies have those patents, and here's some of them that are highlighted, right? Which are in industries that you wouldn't think of a patent at Caterpillar to affect, but that's showing kind of the impact of what innovation in Peoria can have on the world in general. And so I've been asked to be an advisor for an event that's going to happen at Peoria Riverfront Museum. And so this is opening after President's Day, so February 20th. They have a collection of patents that were signed by US presidents, because when the founding of the country happened, because intellectual property was so important, the sitting president had to physically sign the patent certificate for every patent that was issued. And there's a collector that's provided that on loan to the Riverfront Museum that has presidential signatures of 6 of the first 8 presidents. And pairing with that, we're going to show some patents and innovation in the Peoria area. So once that's open on February 20th, it'll be up for a little while, so stay tuned on that one. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you here. I know I went through a lot of that pretty fast, and give you an idea of like where we're going, what we're looking at, what types of things we're doing. But I also wanted to open up to the floor to answer any questions you might have about Peoria Next and the companies and the things that we do. Yeah.
Bradley owns the building. Bradley owns the building and facility. Is there any payback from these people for rent to help offset that cost?
Yeah, so how this works is, so Bradley manages the building, so I'm a Bradley employee. The tenants pay rent to then receive that space, but we're renting it out at way below market rates, and so a lot cheaper than you would have to pay when you're just finding other space out in the market, and then also specialized space like those research labs. What we do is then we increase those rates 10% a year. so that by year 4 or 5, you're at the level of, or 3 to 5, you're at the level of what you would pay outside the building, to then incentivize people to find new space outside the building so new companies can come in and take advantage of those resources and rates.
So thank you so much for being with us today. Yeah. How do you qualify? If I have a startup business and I'd like to pursue this, what's the criteria for being selected for this?
Yeah, so we have co-working space, we have regular office space, we have larger office spaces, and then we have research labs. All of it's based on if you're doing a startup in the Peoria area, right? If your technology is, if your company's new, right, and you need those resources. We broadly, well, let me back up. Part of the building required a portion of the building to be in support of or for bio research or technology research-based startups. We hit that threshold with the research labs, their back office space, and the 3rd floor of IMAX supporting those types of companies as well. And so the office space in general, we offer to any startups in the area. So we're not looking for people that are like remote workers for other companies. But one good example of this is Rain Construction. They have 2 offices in Peoria. They've been there for about 6 years now. That was started by Bridget Booker, who was the first Black woman who reached the journeyman level in her ironworking union, left and started her own construction company. So she's a general contractor now, an ironworking contractor. She's got a big project renovating the state capitol down in Springfield. But kind of a back office of that startup and that expansion is kind of where you would see that. So even though you wouldn't traditionally assume that a construction or contractor would fit in an innovation space, it's really any sort of startup that we can support that's going to create jobs and innovation in the area.
Yes, how close are we to getting a venture capitalist firm here in Peoria?
Yeah, so that is an ongoing process. We've had discussions with different people that have been interested in what that looks like. What it would need is, in order to get the match from ILGIF, you need to create a structure and have raised $5 million, because they match $5 million or more. And so really it's finding the right professional group of people that have done this before to get a structure around, here's the investment committee, here's the thesis, here's how it would work, and here's how we're going to raise the money. And so there are different people that are working on trying to get that structure together. And I'm just kind of communicating that as the opportunity of, like, if anybody wants to start that, right, we're ready to go. But there's only so many things that I can do in that manner.
Do you follow up on the success of any companies that have come through you?
Yeah.
I was wondering about a company that, a couple of engineers from Caterpillar that developed this tankless hot water heater. Yep. I guess they went through you and then they moved their company over to Galesburg?
Yep. So that's Intellihot. They do commercial tankless water heaters. They did the water heater for the 49ers NFL stadium. So now they've got contracts with Hilton and Hyatt and Marriott. They're still going. They actually have the water heater here. This was one of the first places they tested their water heaters, is Barracks Catering. But in addition to that, so they did manufacturing facility out of Galesburg. It was founded by 2 founders. One of those founders moved to Vernon Hills, Chicago, and so that's where they've got their headquarters. They raised another $50 million a year and a half ago.
I wonder if you could get them to sell the house next door to me. that one of the engineers lived in, and he's got it up for collateral against the building in Galesburg.
Okay.
And they're renting it out, and I'd like to get that house sold.
I try to solve problems, but I don't know if that one, I've got the immediate solution for that, but it's good to know.
Do I need to edit that out?
Can you discuss the relationship and or differences between your group and Distillery Labs downtown?
Sure. So Distillery Labs just hired a new executive director, Doug Pruitt. They're still working on building out what they're having down there, right? So it'll be across the street from OSF's new headquarters. What they're going to have is similar from a co-working and office space perspective. They won't have research labs. And so what we've been talking about is focusing on there's different types of people that want to be on Main Street versus downtown, so there'll be general separation that way. The office space we have at Peoria Next is full. We've got a wait list for that, and so the ability to have more of that will be great from an ecosystem perspective. The idea that they're going to focus on is really that early stage ideation and getting a team built. And so it's kind of, you could graduate out of Distillery Labs into Peoria Next and continue to grow and graduate out in the community, or you can start at different places. So really it's just another cog within the ecosystem of what that's going to look like. And so happy that Doug's around, because we can start planning kind of that strategy of what that looks like and how to best partner and where that needs to go. And so stay tuned. We'll know more once they open.
We'll be hearing from him soon.
Okay, great.